The year was 1290, and the succession crisis caused by the death of Scotland's 7-year-old Queen Margaret left the powerful King Edward I of England with an irresistible opportunity to choose Scotland's next king. By 1295, it was clear that Edward as Overlord of Scotland, and with the King John Balliol under his thumb, that he was set for total subjugation of Scotland. In response, the Council of 12, a group of nobles and bishops who had assumed control of the Scottish government, sought alliances with Edward's enemies. At this point, England and France were close to war, as King Philippe IV of France had declared the English territory of Gascony forfeit to the French crown. Thus, seeking a Franco-Scottish alliance was the obvious choice, and so in the October of 1295, a Scottish embassy to King Philippe agreed the Treaty of Paris, and the Auld Alliance was born. The purpose of the alliance was simple: the French would continue their struggle in Gascony, and Scotland would go to war with England. To begin with, the treaty resulted in no protection from Edward, and Scotland was subjugated in a devastating invasion in 1296, which culminated in the removal of the Scottish monarch, and thus Scotland becoming a province of Edward's kingdom. Scotland in the end owed its re-emergence as an independent country to its new king, Robert the Bruce, whose tactical acumen and diplomacy won them their freedom. With Scotland back on track, Robert the Bruce renewed the alliance in the 1326 Treaty of Corbeil. The alliance need not wait long to make an impact. In 1330, Edward III of England began a conquest of Scotland and a campaign to reassert his power in France. For the first time, the alliance had been given a real sense of emergency. The following period, however, was a low point in the Franco-Scottish alliance. In the year 1346, Edward overwhelmed the French army at the Battle of Crécy, and 2 months after, King David II of Scotland was captured at the Battle of Neville's Cross, and only freed 11 years later, a time in which he tried to appease Edward by furthering English influence in Scotland. In the recovery, the alliance was renewed in 1371. The treaty was signed by Charles V at the Château de Vincennes on June the 30th, and at Edinburgh Castle by Robert II on the 28th of October. However, the benefits were mixed. Plans for a Franco-Scottish invasion of England in 1385 never materialised, and the deteriorating relations between France and Scotland were summed up by the French chronicler Jean Froissart, who wished the King of France would make a truce with the English for 2 or 3 years and then march to Scotland and utterly destroy it. It was the mutual ambition to resist the aggressive Lancastrian kings of England in the 15th century that brought the alliance back to the spotlight. Henry V had won a resounding victory at Agincourt in 1415, and the French kingdom neared collapse. As a last-gasp effort, the French Dauphin turned to the Scots. Eager for a fight with England, more than 12,000 Scots boarded ships bound for French shores. The Scots did not have to wait long, as together with the French they met the English army at Beaujeu, east of Angers. The English were led by the king's brother, Thomas of Lancaster, the Duke of Clarence, who commanded a force of around 4,000. The commanders of the Franco-Scots were the Earl of Buchan, John Stuart, and Gilbert de Lafayette, the Marshal of France. They were a 5,000-strong force, and the battle commenced on the 22nd of March 1421 and resulted in a major victory for the Franco-Scottish force, killing the Duke of Clarence in the process. The Scottish army were well rewarded by their French allies, with honours and titles as well as several large banquets. However, joy turned to despair for the Scots, as at Verneuil in 1424, a Scots army of 4,000 were completely decimated. To the English crown, the Scots were hired mercenaries and received no quarter. Those captured were put to the sword. Despite these harrowing events, the alliance had succeeded. The intervention of the Scots had brought invaluable breathing space, and the delay ultimately saved France from English domination. In addition, the Scots who remained in France came to the aid of Joan of Arc in 1429 during her famous relief of Orleans. The Chronique de Cousineau retells the involvement of the Scots and describes John Stuart as commander of Scots forces. Many Scots also served in the Garde Écossaise, personal bodyguard to the monarchy, a regiment which lasted from the reign of Charles VII in 1418 to the abdication of Charles X in 1830. The Garde Écossaise protected Charles VII during the murder of John the Fearless at the Bridge of Montereau and rescued him from fire in Gascony in 1442. In the year of 1465, Scots Guards also fell at the Battle of Montlhéry, defending King Louis XI of France. Anglo-Scottish and Anglo-French conflict continued throughout the 15th and 16th centuries, and the alliance was briefly revived with the marriage between Mary Queen of Scots and Francis II of France, but only until 1560. It was then Scotland was transformed by its new king James VI, also heir to the English throne, to a Protestant nation, and soon followed a formal end to 250 years of treaties between Scotland and France in the Treaty of Edinburgh, Ties between the French and Scottish resumed for a short period during the Jacobite risings, as France was at war with England and many Scots were attempting to restore the Stuart dynasty. However, several failed invasion attempts by France and lack of presence in Scotland led to the final defeat of Jacobitism. Amazingly, the clause in the original alliance that granted dual citizenship in both countries wasn't revoked by the French government until 1903. To conclude, many historians, including Dr. Siobhan Talbot, have written that the Auld Alliance has never been bilaterally revoked, and still exists to this day. As Frenchman Charles de Gaulle said at Edinburgh in 1942, the alliance between Scotland and France is the oldest alliance in the world. In every combat where for 5 centuries the destiny of France was at stake, there were always men of Scotland to fight side by side with men of France, and what Frenchmen feel is that no people has ever been more generous than yours with its friendship.